Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back, everyone. We're going to pick up our discussion with this gentleman who is a publisher, full-service publisher that can help you start a book, work you through it, get it published, get it listed in the Library of Congress. But how do people find out about it? It's all about the marketing of your book. And that's one thing we haven't talked about yet with Mark Pogodzinski, who has a great company called NFB Publishing, and he's back with us. Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Good. How are you today?
Very well, very well. I'm intrigued here on the marketing side. Got a marketing background, but when it comes to books, kind of curious what is available and what you would suggest to get the message out there that this book has been published and it's one that somebody should read.
It's one of the more difficult things to deal with, especially with young authors, novice authors. It's great. The writing process, creative process is fantastic, but now you have this book and you want people to read it. And ideally in the back of your mind, you want to make some money off your writing. And that's where it goes from like that awesome creativity to bare bones. Let's set our mind to it and let's see the most cost-effective way of marketing myself, because that's part of it too, and marketing my work. Not all of us are Stephen King with that recognizable name, and no matter what he writes, people are going to buy it because the longevity and his work is known. So how do we become that? Simple answer is you can't. It's very difficult to break in. So basically there's two ways to go about it. You're a professional, you already have a web of people who know you, right? And you work in whatever it may be, and you have a web of contacts who can help you get that book known. Whether it's you work in broadcasting industry, you write a memoir, you know people, and they know people, and then there's your web. They get a copy of the book, they start spreading the word, and that is the most cost-effective way because it's relatively free. And with social media, depending on how many followers you have, the word is out and people start seeing you. But again, with the social media, you have to post 4 or 5 times a week, if not more. And that becomes a job unto itself. And what do you post? You can only post a cover of your book so many times before people start ignoring it. You can post yourself reading a chapter from your book. Other people reading your book, any a celebrity who might have access to your book, or if you're mentioned. And the social media is an interesting monster. It can work out really well, or it could fall flat. Social media presence does not equate to book sales. And that's why I call it an interesting monster, because you can get so wrapped up into it. It involves you following other authors, getting them to follow you, having a conversation. And again, it's a job unto itself. And most of the authors that we work with do have like a primary job. So when do you do this? And there's data and science out there of when to post, what day, what time to get the most hits. So that is one way to go about that marketing. And I'm sure people who have tried it that way, and it's time consuming and it can cost money. You can't hire a professional. I'm sure people who work in the social media marketing, I guess, arena is the word.
Sure.
And to pay someone to do that, but then they should know you. They should have a sense of who you are. And this leads into marketing yourself as a personality. Your name carries weight. What do you want to put out there about yourself? A pen name, your real name. And these are really important decisions because I've seen in the past social media backfire. You post the wrong thing, something's taken the wrong way, and again, that monster comes out at you. Like, I never meant to say that. I'm just trying to promote my book. But again, someone takes it, twists it, and all of a sudden, what you wanted to say is lost. And then you have to go to a company to go and fix your social media for you. And then we talk about costs. So again, I think the monster visual is good for that social media aspect of marketing.
You bring up some really, really pinnacle points in terms of the branding. It's
Mhm.
my view that many people who may write a book don't think of themselves in terms of a brand. You're an author.
Mhm.
You need to embrace that and not kind of hide behind the pages. People should know who you are. I think sometimes we're a little afraid to step into the spotlight, but it really is part of it. And yeah, there many authors don't do lots of interviews, but you know who they are. You've seen their picture. I believe it's important to get to know the author. And when it comes to social media, you're 100% right about all that, that, you could have a great social media presence. Is it going to sell books? I believe it comes down to ads. And loved your feedback on this. Let's say you wrote a children's book. Yeah, you have a social media presence. You're posting some things occasionally. You're only preaching to the audience that you have on your Facebook page, your followers, the people who like your page. If you have if you have 50,000, whoo, good for you. Then you don't have to spend any money on advertising. You already have a built-in audience. Great. That's not the reality, typically. What do you think about somebody putting a few dollars behind a budget? Again, children's book, targeting moms of kids of a certain age that attach to your book. Let's say it's, kids between the ages of 5 and 8 would love your book. Reaching out to them, done right. That's the key, done right. What are your thoughts about that?
I think it's very important that you make contact with, if you're going to do that, a marketing firm who understands what you want.
Sure.
Um, as you know, there's a lot of marketing firms out there. We will help you. Oh, we will get you, a million hits, but they have no idea who you are. The money is paid, and you don't see a result. So, like with all things, that relationship is essential. You have a contact, you can talk to them either, even if it's by like Zoom or something like that. They see you, they understand what you're trying to do. And then I think a marketing plan, the key is plan. I mean, you can throw hundreds of dollars at the wall, none of it's going to stick. So you have to have an idea, like you say, a specific target audience. And then with this marketing consultant or whomever, can they do what you ask them to do? And if not, then you might have to keep shopping. And that comes down, also brings up the question of budget. You write a book, it's fantastic in your mind. You've gotten a lot of positive feedback from your group of people that you trust. Now is the time for the wider audience. How much are you willing to invest in that? And again, your return might not be what you dreamed of. You don't see authors on late night talk shows. You don't see authors interviewed in a lot of the mainstream media. You see authors in magazines. You see authors on specific podcasts and stuff like that. So, what will you get for your dollar? I guess is the question. And
Hmm.
to your example, that children's book, can that marketing person get you onto specific websites? Can they get you onto a fantastic podcast like this? What can they do? And then it's up to you. I know a lot of authors I work with are introverts, and they have a tough time
Hmm.
speaking. And the way we do it around here is we start off with a very small audience. There's reading groups that we work with, 5 to 10 people. We give them the copy of the book, and then we slowly baby step that person in speaking in front of them. And it's not easy if you're not used to it, or if in your mind you've built up this idea that I can't do it. And it takes time, especially again, I find it with the older authors. They are at war with themselves.
Hmm.
No one's going to like me. And you're like, well, you're of a certain age. You wrote this fantastic book. Everyone loves it. I like it, but we got to get you out there to talk about this. And it requires actually some coaching from time to time for someone to get over these fears. And the old saying is, you can't win a war with yourself. So eventually you got to come to the point where, like, all right, I'm going to talk in front of these 5 strangers about my book, and you should be an expert. So that was like a meandering course there, but as you say, you got to make sure that that marketing firm you're working with is is helping you rather than just because we have this package, here's a package, we're going to fit you into it. And that can be very difficult to find.
Um, the introvert thing, that's why I brought it up because
Yeah.
I I know some people that have written some books and they're great. But it many are authors are introverted, and anybody doesn't feel comfortable standing up in front of people and even talking about what you've done, even about yourself. So I totally get it. Somehow you need to rise above that a little bit
Mhm.
because you have become a brand if you're writing a book, otherwise just write, book by anonymous, but that's not going
And
to support you. And to your point about hiring people to help you out, we've talked briefly before, even PR firms. I have friends who do it. They ask for a retainer, and usually it's a pretty sizable retainer, and usually there is no guarantee that they're going to get you press
yeah,
or exposure. There's no guarantee. Social media, not the same thing in that they may be able to get you out there. They can't guarantee the results, but you need to make sure that they're doing what you need them to do, and what the goals are clear with the people you hire.
with the social media, I think you touched on it. Like, it's more of a you branding yourself with the social media, not promoting a book. Okay. There are certain, like social media groups that promote books, and you can send them copies and they'll review it and they'll post it on Amazon or Ingram or wherever your book may sell. But I think social media is more for branding you as something more than just your book, as an author, as
Hmm.
someone who's working as an author. Videos of you writing. I don't know how exciting those are. They can't be terribly exciting, but you post that, and then you have to post 4 or 5 times a week, if not more. You have to follow certain people. Ideally, they follow you back. And then you can start building that web through social media, where before social media, it was, by word of mouth. You would go to conventions and meet established authors, and ideally you get a blurb for them to write your book. I remember when I was writing my book, I was a huge fan of Cormac McCarthy and still am. And I did all my research and I tried to track him down. I said, I'm going to get a quote from Cormac McCarthy for my book. And I got to his agent and I sent him copies, and I was like, it can be one sentence. And the agent wrote me back, and it was Cormac McCarthy does not give blurbs. And that's what I used, his agent. And then I used that as a marketing tool. And I thought it was humorous, and I thought it was funny. And but again, that was like the old system. And it took me 6 months to run down his agent and actually get them to write me almost a cease and desist. But like Cormac McCarthy does not do blurbs. And I was like, I still have the letter, and it's not by him, of course, but I think it's still funny, and I cherish it.
You bring back memories, and we've talked even a little bit offline about cartoons and
Yeah.
comics. And I wanted to be a syndicated cartoonist. So when I was younger, I would write to cartoonists, and I would just want original art. And I know that people sell it. I just wanted to look at it and what they did, what kind of pen they used, what size it was. Can I see the pencil lines? Oh, I just wanted to see it. And some did send the originals, and I didn't even need it signed. I just wanted to look at it, and I would stare at it for hours. I'm not even kidding. Pick up little nuances here. Oh, they made a mistake. That's how they corrected it. But there were some that wouldn't send anything. And they would send like a auto letter, just like the response you got from that author. It was a little defeating, but I understood it. And usually it was the bigger ones like Charles Schultz,
Oh,
pie in the sky on that one, getting a piece of original art. And I wasn't surprised, but that's really funny though. You took what could be a negative and used it as a positive, for yourself.
I like enjoyed it, and then in your mind, he was going to write you this letter for you. He was going to read my book and obviously be impressed beyond belief and want to be friends. And then obviously didn't work out that way, but
Hmm.
I think it was good for me to try to pursue it. And like they say with the artists, the stuff that you do get, you cherish. Because I talked about comic books before. Back when I was a kid and started collecting, these famous artists would be at conventions and they would doodle whatever you wanted because no one cared. And now those comic book artists are selling stuff online for like $10,000, $20,000. And I remember you could get one for $5. Like Neil Adams was as a comic book artist I met when I was young, and I was like, "Can you sign my comic book?" And he signed it, and he's like, "Here," and he sketched a Batman for me. He's like, "Have it," and with his signature, I was like, "Now that thing is beyond belief." So it's a different era. We're trying to track people down to get stuff from them, and for them to say anything positive about you. But you never know what a post from someone who's known that you're mentioning, it could open a lot of doors for you.
That's a great point. And that's the way of today. You can send a letter if you want, but yes, if you hashtag something, there's a chance that somebody might pick up on it and you might even start a relationship like that. It's happened before. People have connected with celebrities, and who would even know, just doing a post and a hashtag. And if it's heartfelt, you never know what's going to happen. I want to ask this question because I think it's important.
Uh-oh.
Somebody who's writing a book should do it without the intent of making money. Do you agree?
Quick answer, yes. I always go back, you write for yourself first. You write because you have this need, this creative needs, create outlet. It has to be done. When you write for everybody, you impress no one. If you throw everything at the wall, nothing's going to stick. And all those other sayings. So I always advise, especially young writers, write for yourself first. And again, if you have the creative drive, you're going to write. It might not be great. You might need an editor to tear apart the entire manuscript and make it better. But I think it's incredibly difficult and disheartening to start writing with the notion I'm going to be a bestseller and make millions of dollars, or I'm going to work my book into a TV show and try to sell for that. And people have done it before. You see what's out there and you try to craft something in that vein with the notion of trying to sell it. But I think in order to do that, you have to have a built-in connection somewhere. You can't do that and avoid and hope that someone discovers you. So I think if you're going to write for money, you've already got some sort of connection to that world, whether it be an agent, whether it be someone in the television industry or film industry, that you can see a path to that money. And that can be done. It has been done in the past, but for just a normal person like myself who's writing, you got to start writing because you enjoy it and you want to craft something.
Do you feel if you have a story to tell that has a deeper meaning, or if it's a nonfiction book that has something for someone, to look at it through the lens of, I'm doing this for myself, but I could be helping somebody else at the same time. And that's my motivation. If it turns into a moneymaker, well, hey, that's gravy on top. That's a cherry, on top of the sundae. Is it reasonable to look at it that way?
I would hope so. In my positive, naive view of the world, when someone's doing that, especially as we talked about before, writing something that's been hurtful or traumatized to you, first you write it to help yourself, the therapy of writing it down, and getting it out and getting it on the page. And therefore it's living there. It doesn't have to live here anymore or here. Ideally that could help someone else. And that should be a rewarding experience. And we've had that in the past multiple times. Those books are probably not going to be bestsellers because, first of all, people are going to shy away from something that's sad or traumatic because it might trigger something in them. And those people who are going to read it are reading it for a myriad of different reasons. And it's not so the author can become rich. It's because they need to read it. They need to experience it because either they had something similar or it's going to help them deal with whatever they have going on in their lives. So the nonfiction memoir, I'm a big fan of it, and again, we encourage everyone to journal and everything. There's difficult to make money on that, and then you have terrible examples like A Million Little Pieces, which wasn't real, and that set back that type of writing a bit because publishers and agents were wary. Like you can't. Someone writes an incredibly heartfelt memoir. You're going to go dig into their past to make sure it's real, or you're just going to pass on it, and that way you avoid any possible issue. And that's happened since that book came out. You saw a big dip in that, and it still happens these days. People are fictionalizing things and passing it off as real. So it's difficult with that book, but ideally, in the happy, naive world I live in, yeah, you're trying to help other people, and that should be the motivation for most things.
We live in the same world. And I feel the same. It's if we all have a story to tell, whether it's in a book or not, and I believe all of our stories can help others. I hear your story. It resonates with me. It's like, we take little pieces from somebody's story and apply it to ourselves. And sometimes I believe the story can be in a book where that can help somebody. And that story could even come in a fictional character, but maybe there's something there that can help somebody. Call me naive as well, but I believe there's a reason.
The memoirs are tough too, because you want to help people, and you start putting that stuff on social media, and again the monster comes out. People come out of the woodwork, and they can be vicious. It was your fault that this happened, and then you're dealing with something else, and then you respond to that, and that's another whole nother thing that you might have to deal with. And so a lot of people are wary of using the trauma memoir to try to promote it and make money, because it can be incredibly dangerous, and it could reopen wounds that you had worked so hard to deal with.
I totally see that. And maybe that's the isolated situation where that type of book, you approach it from a different angle, but there's been many things published where it's a tragic story, and someone is telling their story because it can help and inspire somebody else. But that's really up to the individual if you want to go there. So I totally see it. Somebody could call you out on social media. Oh, that happened to you, and look what you're trying to do now. You're trying to sell books. Well, whatever. Yeah, but I see your point, and it can, once you reply back to it, they're going to reply back to it, back and forth. And although you can hide comments, so I'm just saying.
So it can be a dangerous thing, but I don't want to discourage anyone from not trying. It's just something that we have to be aware of. Ideally, it's never going to happen, but again, we're aware of it. We understand it. We're pushing forward anyway, and that's hopefully that's the great decision that someone makes.
And my takeaway here is, if you're going to market your book or your brand, you need to be careful about it. Vet these people out if you're hiring somebody for social media or PR, if you're getting that far. You really need to make sure they have your best interest in mind, and ask questions. Ask lots of questions.
And business thinking too. Decide on a budget before you start looking for marketing. Have it in mind, like I am going to spend $10,000 this year on marketing my book, and try not to deviate from that as much as you can. And again, that's just common sense, logical thinking. I only have this amount of money to spend, but I want to spend it. So let me spend it in the right spot. And that's what, as you say, take some time. Make sure you understand what you're getting, who you're working with, what they want out of it, because maybe they want something too. Maybe you grow together, which is always one of my favorite things to do. But that's important too. But that budget's an important logistical thing to think of before you start.
And 10K, somebody starting out, that's I think personally, that's a wonderful budget. If you can do that, fantastic for you. But carefully spent. And sometimes we don't know what things cost. So before you arrive at that budget, maybe go on a fact-finding mission and then come to that budget. And tweak it as needed. Mark, great talking with you. Always learn a lot.
I appreciate it, and I thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, your website. How do we find you?
at nfbpublishing.com. There's a simple form to fill out to start the process. We do work with a couple of different marketing firms at that point, and we can help you as much as we possibly can. But first step is start writing. Sit down, let's get some creativity going, and we can also help with that too.
Beautiful. Thanks again for being here.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.